Well, gone. It's been a while, I know, but let's get into it. So this weekend we have UFC 321, Aspinall versus Gane, and we got it, ladies and gentlemen. It's the big one. It's finally here. This is going to be the fight that really going to determine a lot of things as far as the heavyweight division is concerned. It's going to be the one that really helps to really kind of determine what kind of really put some narrative to this Aspinall versus Jones, a little bit of sprinkle of Gane and Pereira in there as well of that entire saga. This performance really is going to kind of determine who who the real trajectory behind that narrative that's being painted. Some of you may not know what I'm talking about if you aren't as familiar with this entire UFC saga as far as the heavyweight division is concerned. But in general, for those who know, you know. But let's get through this whole card. I'll start with the early prelims as usual, work my way up to the main card, and then I'll really elaborate as necessary. So let's get into it now. We're going to be starting this card off with women's strawweight, which is a pretty hot division right now. It's going to be Jacqueline Amorim versus Mizuki. I'm leaning towards Jacqueline for this one. I just feel as if she's probably the better fighter in this situation. Um, I'm not really expecting anything too crazy from either of them. Kind of expecting Jacqueline to kind of just inch it, maybe even centimeter it ahead of her a little bit. Mizuki in this matchup and just inch the win out. I wouldn't be surprised if Mizuki kind of had a flash knockout of her in this matchup, but personally, I just think that Jacqueline is just overall the better fighter in this situation, and that she'll just kind of get it. I see it being like two. I see her winning 2 rounds to Mizuki's one. Basically, just seeing this ending as a 29-28 decision for Jacqueline. Moving on to the next fight, we got Azat Makusum versus Mitch Raposo. I am going with the underdog of Mitch Raposo for this one, but I will say, and I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I'm going with just a feeling. This is the one fight on this entire card where I'm like, I'm feeling Raposo, even though on paper Azat should be the winner. Azat basically has every advantage over Raposo, honestly. Like I think he's probably the overall better fighter. He got more reach, the better record, like more experience in every aspect. Azad should be the one who wins this one. But if I don't know if you know what I mean when you ever get that feeling, whereas like something is just telling you to go against your senses, and sometimes it really works out. This is one where I could be completely wrong. I could be completely just saying BS. But for this specific fight, I'm just leaning towards Raposo. I just feel like he's gonna put on a show for this one, and he'll be the one to win this. I say, to be honest, I see Raposo winning by knockout, but I wouldn't be surprised if he won it by decision. Like, I'm not strongly with how he's gonna win, but I'm feeling Raposo with this victory for this one. Now, I do not have that same feeling for this next matchup. We have Hamdi. Hey, I'm not going to butcher his last name. We have Hamdi versus Chris Barnett. I'm never picking Chris Barnett. In the modern era, I am never picking Chris Barnett to win a UFC fight. Absolutely not. I'm going with Hamdi, and I'm going Hamdi by finish. I'll call it, let's say, a first or second round knockout. Not even saying TKO. I'm saying knockout. Like, I know Chris Barnett used to be that fat guy with a great mobility in the heavyweight division, constant threat, like defying the odds of what he looks like. I don't. You cannot literally injure yourself getting hyped up at the announcement for your name in a fight and expect that I'm going to pick you for a UFC fight to win. I'm never picking Chris Barnett to win a UFC fight in the modern era. Ever. I'm going with Hamdi by first or second round knockout. Moving on, we got Nathaniel Wood versus Jose Miguel Delgado. I'm going with Jose Miguel Delgado. I've really been enjoying how he's been looking his past few performances. Don't get me wrong, Nathaniel Wood is good as well, but Jose Miguel Delgado, he's been really looking great in his past few showings. He's been looking improved. He's been looking determined. He's been looking clean. I like it. He's been looking a little swaggy. Striking's been great. Grappling defense has been good. He's been very aggressive. He's also been strategic. I like Jose Miguel Delgado. Even though Nathaniel Wood is good, always brings the aggression, always brings the determination, always willing to like chase that victory. But I just see Miguel Delgado being the better fighter in this one. Um, I see this as a third round TKO on the part of Jose Miguel Delgado, especially if we follow the theme of the past few cards of like this increase in finishes. I can see Jose Miguel Delgado getting a finish in the third round. See it being a nice little scrap, and then in the third round, Miguel Delgado kind of just wearing him down, catching him, and just taking him out of there. Moving on, we got my boy Walter Walker versus Louis Sutherland. Now, I'm sure you can tell based off the introduction. I'm going with Walter Walker. I have to. Walter Walker right now is what his older brother Johnny Walker was in how at least how people viewed him up to the point when he got his first loss when he was in the light heavyweight division going crazy. Walter Walker, the difference is unlike how Johnny looked, Walter doesn't look wild. A lot of Johnny's like knockouts and finishes come from him being wild, him looking untechnical, like kind of throwing anything from anywhere, you not knowing what's coming and what's landing. But that's also why he got knocked out so much. Walter is a lot different. First of all, rather than specializing striking like Johnny, Walter specializes in his jiu-jitsu. But then Walter is also a lot more technical, a lot more intentional. He's a lot more intentional in how he executes his plan, his strategies, his efficiency, just how he puts it together. Walter, for me, is one of the top prospects I'm looking at for the heavyweight division right now. Him, along with guys like Talison Tejera, even though he just lost to Derek Lewis, and among some other prospects, these are the guys that I've got my eye on. For me, I think Walter Walker, who making a name for himself as the heel hook king, and that's really crazy to say as a heavyweight, which really puts it in perspective. We've seen like what some of these a good mobile grappler can do in the heavyweight division. We saw that from Aspinall himself as an example, even though most of his fights are strikes. When he needs to go to grappling, we see what that can do. We've seen what somebody like even a Gelton Almeida, who kind of more or less stormed through the division on just his wrestling and submissions, that he started to like utilize more. We've seen what he can do, only getting caught by someone like Curtis Blades when he didn't know how to like release that, when to abandon ship and try to reset. But I don't see Walter having that issue. Walter's very well, like he's got excellent timing and execution of those heel hooks, and even beyond. I don't think he's gonna win just because of the heel hook. His fight IQ, which is something that his brother lacks in a lot of cases, his fight IQ appears to be very high. His fight IQ appears to be very high. He's very aware. He's very intentional with how he set ups. He's not unwilling to abandon ship to reset and to really chase the finish when he smells it. I really, really like Walter as a prospect for the upcoming heavyweight division. I don't see him beating somebody like an Aspinall, but I don't see anybody beating Aspinall right now, which we'll get to later on. But as far as Walter, I think that somebody like an Almeida, I think he'd actually be a great matchup against somebody like an Almeida. I see Walter getting a lot further in the division, so I look forward to his growth. But I see Walter, to be honest, Louis Sutherland, despite his threat, I wouldn't be surprised if Walter got him out of there in the first round finish. But I see the first two rounds, but I really, honestly, I think Walter gets it done in the first round submission. Um, Probably another heel hook. If not a heel hook, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes something else in it. But I see Walter getting it done. Moving on, We got Abdul Karim Al Selwadi versus Matheus Camilo. Initially, I was actually going to go with Matheus Camilo in this matchup, but I did some more thinking about it, and I decided to go with Abdul Karim Al Selwadi. I think Sewadi's striking will be a little bit better, or at the very least, a little bit better in this matchup. To be accurate, a lot of times it might not be better just technically by itself, but it's better in the matchup against each other. I think Sewadi's striking will be a little bit more. I'll give him a bit more advantage in this. I think his submission or his grappling it would be better in this stylistic matchup. I think Silwadi. I was leaning towards Matheus Camilo. So I'm like, even now, I'm not definitive because Camilo is good and he also is good for this matchup. But I think Silwadi is just actually, Al Silwadi is actually just a little bit more superior in this after I did some more thinking on it. I think his speed is a bit better, a little bit more power. I think I'm in this moment. If I was talking about inches and centimeters earlier, right here, this feels like millimeters to me. Like it feels like a really close matchup. I'm just edging a little bit more towards Abdul. So I'm very interested to see how their matchup actually looks in real time. We got my boy Ludovic Klein versus my guy Mateus Rebecki. Two pretty good fighters. Or let me rephrase that. I think Ludovic Klein is a great fighter. A great MMA fighter. I think Matheus Rebecki is a great brawler, just great regular street fighter brawler. I think Rebecki is tough. I think Rebecki is gritty. I think Rebecki is willing to like get in a firefight and willing to either get finished or get the finish. That's why I think people love Rebecki. Always brings the fire, always brings his heart. I think Ludovic Klein is a really good technical fighter. And I think sometimes that is his disadvantage. I think he himself would benefit from like being more gritty at times. I think sometimes he kind of hesitates to kind of really risk risk the loss to get the win. I know both of these gentlemen are coming off losses, but I think sometimes Ludovic Klein hesitates to risk the loss to get the win. So this definitely is an interesting matchup. I'm leaning toward Ludovic Klein. I think Ludovic Klein gets it done by my bad. I think Ludovic Klein gets it done by decision. I don't know what I was about to say finish. I think Ludovic Klein in this matchup like wins a 29-28 decision. But I think that Ludovic Klein also has to be aware. I think he is capable of getting the finish against Rebecki, but I don't think he will because of the nature of Rebecki to keep stomping forward and to get in those firefights and be willing to risk it. So like he isn't as technically good as Klein, and he might end up doing himself a disservice in that by being too willing to risk it. But that's the thing. Like we've seen Rebecki beat Orwa, somebody is significantly, I would argue Orwa is much more technically sound than Klein. And we expected that to be a showcase, but it wasn't. We saw Rebecki tough it out and pull that win out. So in that same matchup, I think Ludovic Klein should win this fight. I think he should on paper. I think he has everything he needs from reach to skills, from reach, strength, size to skills in order to win. I just don't know if that's enough to be that guy like Rebecki who's willing to make it ugly, especially if you aren't necessarily willing to do the same yourself, to the same extent at least. But we shall see. Well, my final pick is Ludovic Klein, 29-28 decision victory. Speaking of, we have Ikram Aliskerov versus John Young Park. I know there's a lot of people who aren't really capable of like providing context to a lot of these situations. Meaning a lot of people try to use MMA math. He beat him and he lost to him, so this should be. That's not how it works. I know that Aliskerov, top prospect, huge prospect, but I know that in a lot of people's mind, it's fresh that the Ritter beat Whitaker and Whitaker like ran through Aliskerov, and the Ritter just lost to Brendan Allen. So on paper, everybody who lost to the Ritter is really shit. I know a lot of people, that's how they think. But Aliskerov, he's only had 2 professional losses, and they're to Hamza Chimaev and Robert Whitaker. Like, feel me, two people who are arguably Whitaker, who's an all-time great, and Chimaev, who is on his way if he continues the trajectory he's on right now. It's difficult for me to sit here and then just completely ignore and forget what somebody has accomplished. Technically speaking, Aliskerov is one of the best people in the division, in the middleweight division right now. Julian Park is also a very great fighter, very strong, very dangerous knockout power. I see Aliskerov knocking him out, if I'm being honest. I think Aliskerov gets him out here in the second or third rounds. I'd say if I really wanted to stomp, uh, make it solid, I'd say Aliskerov gets him out of there in the third round finish, third round TKO or submission, whichever one he managed to get. I think Aliskerov is that good, technically speaking. Um, I think his last fight, there were some moments where he kind of wanted to rush to be like, "Yo, I'm still him," or "I'm still here." Like that last performance isn't me, or that last performance isn't all there is to me. So I'm very much looking forward to him continuing that y'all must have done forgot to run. Um, I don't see many people outside of the top 10, to be honest, beating Aliskerov. But middleweight is a very hot division right now. Like, it's very hot, very competitive. Lots of back and forth, lots of changes. So more to be determined. Julian Park, once again, very good, very strong, very dangerous. I don't see him beating Aliskerov. I see Aliskerov getting him out of there. I don't see this making it to the judges. But we shall see. Aliskerov, third round TKO. Now on to our feature prelim. We have Nasrat Haqparast versus Kilian Salhu. Another fight where I'm leaning towards a guy who a lot of people probably who would be surprised by. I'm going with Haqparast for this one. I think Haqparast has everything he needs, to be honest. Um, Smaller fighter, yes. More losses, yes, but he also has more fights, at least professionally speaking. Um, I think Haqparast has kind of had a wider show of his skills. I think Haqparast striking might not be able to just purely by itself be enough to like get him over Sal Khalid. But I also believe that Haqparast has been looking pretty nice recently. I think Haqparast has pretty good fight IQ, able to kind of figure it out. I see Haqparast kind of being more of the thinking man in this matchup, being able to kind of figure him out over time. I expect him to struggle early and then to kind of get it, kind of more so as the fight gets extended and goes on. He kind of he finds his flow, and then kind of inches it away. I see Haqparast losing the first round personally, and then kind of bring it back with the last two, or even if he managed to sneak the first round, and then South Lead comes back and like really stamps it the second, and I see Haqparast kind of really putting on a show in that last one. So I see Haqparast like winning this one by decision, see being a 29-28 decision, and I see that good, or maybe even a split decision. But I see Haqparast winning the decision for this one. Moving on to the main event, let's start off with light heavyweight. I am a really big fan of Alexander Rakic and his skill set. In this matchup between Rakic and Azmat Murkazanov, I am a very big fan of Rakic. I think Rakic is one of the best people, technical wise, in the entire light heavyweight division. I see a lot of people give him a lot of shit because of his last 2 fights being losses, but people don't look at who he lost to. He is losing to Yuri and Ankalaev, 2 people who I personally consider a part of the top 3 unmovable in the light heavyweight. I see it being Alex Pereira, Ankalaev, and Yuri Prohaska as those three only lose to each other. That's how I personally see it. Despite the last performance, and I know how dominant it was, I still think that Ankalaev can beat Alex Pereira. And Alex Pereira has obviously proven that he can do the same himself. And I think both of them beat Yuri. And I think Yuri beats literally everybody else. I know that in his last fight, we saw Yuri basically just get beat, technically speaking, and still come back in the end. That's kind of the nature of what happened against Rakic. Rakic really put on a clinic against Yuri. I'd argue that Rakic had a more dominant win against Yuri than Ankalaev did. Oh, my bad. I would argue that I don't know why I said Ankalaev. I would argue that Rocket had a much more dominant win again, dominant performance against Yuri prior to him being finished than Roundtree did. However, when you look at that and you watch the matchup, it's hard for me to be like, yeah, we see what happened with Yuri, and then we see how Rocket was beating him and stuff. When once again, I feel like the nature of Yuri's fights by this point, like he's losing till he's not. You know what I mean? Like happened with Glover, it happened with Rockkick, it happened with Roundtree. That feels like the theme of Yuri's fights. Like, yeah, I'll lose and then I knock you out, and you lose and then I submit you. But I feel like, technically speaking, Rockkick is a top 5 contender in the light heavyweight division, and I don't really as good. And Mazukhanov is fucking great. Great power, great boxing, great technical striking. I just think that Rockkick has all of that and more. If anything, I'd say the thing that Rockkick probably likes a little bit more, a little bit like a little bit more courage, because we saw that the loss against Yuri kind of shook him, but then also Ankalaev, who's a great boxer himself, like kind of kept him going back the whole fight. We saw the aggression he fought Yuri with was very different than what he fought Ankalaev with. So I'm a little bit worried about that, to be honest. But I think Rakic wins this one by, honestly, I think he wins it by TKO. I know most people probably expect Mirzakhanov to get the finish in this one, but I think Rakic gets it done. Like second or third round TKO. Moving on, we have Alexander Volkov versus Jelton Almeida. I'm conflicted about this, not because of who I think wins. I'm conflicted because I feel as if they've done rock. My bad. Why do I keep saying other fighters' names in this fight? I'm conflicted because I feel as if they've done Volkov dirty. I think Volkov got robbed against Gane. I think this fight, this main card should really be um, Tom Aspinall versus Alexander Volkov. I think most of us agree with that. However, it is what it is. I think stylistically speaking, Jelton Almeida is a terrible matchup for Volkov. I just do. I don't, but I don't see Volkov necessarily having a lot of answers for that level of grappling. However, we've seen Volkov constantly rebuild himself and improve by leaps and bounds. Every time we've doubted Volkov, he's proved us wrong in the most recent time. I really would love for Volkov to win this one, but I'm picking Jelton Almeida. I think the grappling is too much. I think he's been adding finishes to it recently, more intentionally. I think he's been increasing his aggression. I think he's worried that people think he's boring, so he's trying to put on more of a show. I think that makes him more dangerous. But I really, really, really hope that Volkov wins. If Volkov wins this fight, he's next in line for the title shot, unless Pereira moves up. Period. If Alexander if Alexander Volkov is able to beat Jelton Almeida in this fight, he is the next person in line, without a doubt. Especially if Aspinall wins, and Aspinall has made it very clear. It doesn't matter who wins, to be honest, because Aspinall has made it very clear that he wants to stay busy. So if Aspinall is able to stay busy, he might fight early next year for the Paramount card, and he would go against Volkov if Volkov is able to win. And if Gane manages to win, everybody believes that Gane lost that fight and it should have gone to Volkov. So if that's true, then that's old history, right? Immediately, quick, fast like that, and they can just plug and play with Volkov against for the trilogy. and then we can really make it official. So I'd really like to see that. I think Volkov's striking is better than Almeida's. I think everybody with a brain would agree with that. I think we've seen Volkov improve his striking and we've seen Volkov's fight IQ. We've seen Volkov improve his striking against an opponent like Pavlovich that he knew had the tighter, more explosive, more dangerous boxing. So he went for an outboxing style and out technical him. We've seen when he went against Ciryl Gane, Volkov knew that Gane has much better mobility, much faster, much more accurate than the average heavyweight. So he mixed in the grappling. His grappling was significantly improved. He was able to mix it up and may really make it tricky with Gane and was able to just all around. He made it an MMA fight. He was able to pull out that win that he got robbed of. That still bothers a lot of us. So with this fight, Jelton Almeida significantly lacking in the striking aspect, but dominant grappling, and then not to mention his submissions that he's mixing in. If Volkov can get past that, don't test him again. Put him in there against the winner of Aspinall versus Gane. So let's see what happens. Moving on, we have the feature main event, Umar Nurmagomedov against Mario Bautista. This is a pretty interesting matchup for both fighters. More so Umar. So start off with the ending. I think Umar wins. I think Umar finishes this one. And my bad, I think Umar wins this one by decision specifically. However, we saw how Merab is running through everybody. Merab's hardest fight since he started his win streak was Umar. I think stylistically speaking, Umar has a lot of things that could present trouble to Merab in a rematch between them. However, right now in his matchup against Bautista, I think Umar is a better striker. I think Umar is the better just technical grappler as far as submission artist. But I think Bautista is the bigger fighter. I think Bautista is the more wrestling aggressive wise. Whereas Umar uses wrestling in combination or as a defensive technique, Bautista is willing to use it aggressively, even if it's just to slow down the fight. Bautista is willing to make the fight ugly for the win, which I don't know if Umar is. I think Umar gets too caught up in his mind sometimes and tries to make it a super, super pretty technical fight to get it. Whereas Bautista is like, fuck the crowd, F all of that. I will make this ugly if I need to win. I don't care about the boos. I don't care who says it's boring. If I have to hold you against this cage for 5 rounds straight in order to make it, to get the win, that's what I'll do. And I think that's what Bautista is like. We saw him do it against Jose Aldo. I don't think that he's unwilling to do it against Umar. And we've seen Merab, who everyone says is pretty strong, but still we've seen Merab just kind of outmuscle and outstrength Umar when it got into those clinches or those tight times where you actually could feel the opponent. Curious to see how this matchup goes, but I think Umar wins this. I think Umar wins it by decision. I haven't really seen Bautista get properly rocked as yet. He's got a pretty good chin on him, which is a really good combination for that sort of style, that grindy style. But let's see if Umar can get it done. This is going to be the second like top level opponent we've seen. I don't, despite what everybody says, I think that Umar's fought like pretty great opponents before. But this is, as far as ranking wise, this is going to be the second top level opponent we've seen Umar go against outside of Corey Sandhagen, not including Merab, seeing as he is the champion. So let's see what Umar can do against Bautista. The more dominant performance, the better. I know a lot of people are expecting Umar to call out and try to get an immediate rematch. If this was a different circumstance, I would completely say that that's unfair, that he needs to do more. But at the same time, Merab being as active as he is and just running through the division and dominating is actually kind of helping Umar in this case, especially with how close their fight is, because he's the only justifiable matchup right now, because Merab is making everybody else look unworthy. He's running through everybody. He's getting finishes now. He's dominating people. He's exhausting them. He's making this shit look easy. So let's see if especially if Umar can have a dominant performance if he, instead of getting a decision, either a super dominant decision or an incredible finish against Bautista, him versus Merab definitely is a realistic possibility next for that championship. Moving on to the co-main. I know. Oh, my bad, guys. I guess I got too excited. But as I was saying, moving on to the co-main, we got Mackenzie Dern versus Verna Jandiroba. I got Verna Jandiroba in this one. I think Jandiroba is just better, honestly. She's just better. Like, she's a better striker. I think Dern has better grappling and submission, but I think Jandiroba has better grappling defense. I think she's a better overall MMA fighter. I think she's been more active. I think she's faced overall better competition. I think she wants it more. I think she's just more ready, honestly. I think Jandiroba just start to finish is going to be a little bit too much for Dern in this matchup. I think that she's going to kind of just overwhelm her. And I really think just better striking. Oh, excuse me. I think better basic skills and just a higher fight IQ is really all you need to beat Dern. I know that may sound a bit insulting, but I'm just talking about in this specific matchup. I think Jandiroba has the better foundational skills. I think she has the better fight IQ. I think she has the better experience with the level of competition and the frequency of competition she's had. Especially, this is the now, as I said earlier, strawweight is hot. So this is for the new title. You feel me? I know it's one of those ones where it feels a little bit, you know, feels a little bit like, is she really the champion? Because Wei Li is vacating her title to move up and face Shevchenko, and in a different era. In a different era, Wei Li would have probably still had her title, and this would have probably been for an interim. So I know like a lot of feelings with that. However, personally, I think it's time. I think it's about time Wei Li moved up for that potential. I actually see Wei Li having the potential to have a greater legacy than Nunes. That's going to be for a different video. But I see that her having that level of potential, but potential being the first female, the first three division champion, or at least the first female three division champion. Once again, for future video. But I think Verna Jandiroba, I just see it, man. I think this is the time. I think it's her time. I think she's gonna kind of put on that statement. I don't know how exciting the fight's gonna be because sometimes Jandiroba's fights are like incredible, and then other times it's kind of slow. Maybe she kind of secured the win, but sometimes, either way, I see her winning, and I think that all that matters at the end of the day. So let's see what happens. Moving on, fight we've all come here for, main event: Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane. I think Aspinall flatlines him. To be blunt, like I'll keep simple. Like going through their stats, yes, I get it. Ciryl Gane's been around for a while. Yes, Ciryl Gane has only lost to two people, the two goats, quote unquote, like Francis Ngannou and John Jones. I think a lot of people think that. Not saying I agree, because I don't. Some people think that he got robbed against Ngannou, and then Ngannou's toughest fight thus far. And other people think that he might have took a dive for Jones or so, or he was just too easy. I hear all of that, but going around for me, I don't think Ciryl Gane spent a large amount of his career avoiding the fighters that were genuine threats to him. He did it with Blades. He did it with Aspinall before Aspinall had the title. He out here, he's literally gone on record saying that, yeah, he doesn't really care too much. He out here having acting gigs instead of having fights. It's a fighter who likes still showing out more than he likes fighting. I don't like him. I'm gonna be blunt. I don't like him. That doesn't have anything to do with my pick either. I just think that he's not a good mentally speaking, for an MMA fighter. But I think he gets flatlined by Aspinall because Ciryl Gane has excellent movement. Excellent movement. Well, Aspinall has great movement himself. Not as good as Ciryl, if I'm being honest, but it takes more movement. But Aspinall has the thing that Ciryl likes, which is incredible grappling. And Aspinall has a fucking blast double on him. We saw him do it against Orlovsky. Aspinall's grappling, like we saw that little clip. Like if you ever saw a grappling against Imavov and Ciryl Gane, Ciryl Gane's grappling is not good enough. Even that's the reason why Volkov made it an actual offensive strategy to implement the grappling, and we saw how that did. And Aspinall is a better grappler than Volkov. Trust and believe that. I think and not just wrestling or jiu-jitsu, both. Ciryl Gane, big gap in the grappling ability. Longer reach, which is great for outboxer, but Aspinall is too fast. Gane is got fast feet, but Aspinall has fast hands. When it comes to exchanges, Aspinall's going to get there first. Even if he doesn't get there first, he's going to get there last. You feel me? And that's the shot, oftentimes the shot that really counts. Aspinall also is a lot stronger. And I mean that both physically and power-wise, striking-wise. I'm not even going to mention the Tuivasa thing where we saw Gane getting hit by somebody who's a significantly worse striker than Aspinall and significantly slower as well and significantly less powerful. But if they get into exchanges, which they will, you're going to look at it, you're going to see that Aspinall is significantly faster, especially when it comes to the infighting. And Aspinall is significantly more aggressive than Gane. Gane is one of those ones that he kind of needs to warm up. He needs to get into those moments. He needs to kind of really feel you out a lot of times. And he needs to manage that distance. We saw him versus Ngannou, how kind of Ngannou was able to kind of try to force him, and Ngannou was the one who was constantly putting the pressure on. And Gane was kind of able to maintain a lot of that distance and stuff until Ngannou himself started utilizing wrestling against him to kind of make up for those gaps. Aspinall has better footwork than Ngannou did. Aspinall has better boxing than Ngannou is. Ngannou kind of over-relied on his power a lot. And he kind of just swung hard and knew that he just needed to hit you eventually. Aspinall is a much better actual technician. Better timing, better accuracy, better speed. It's not really going to be as comparable for Gane as far as fight experience is concerned. And Aspinall is much more comfortable and has a much easier time to incorporate the grappling. Overall, I just think that Aspinall has much more ways to finish Gane than Gane does with him. Because even in terms of straight power, and I know this is heavyweight, but Gane isn't really the one hit, one punch knockout kind of guy. He's kind of the accumulative damage. Whereas Aspinall can knock you out and is known for that fight, that quick flash knockout. There's a reason why he has the shortest fight time in UFC history. I see Aspinall flatlining him, honestly. I see this being a first round knockout, not TKO, by the way. First round knockout. But if Gane is really doing incredibly well, maybe a second round knockout, honestly. We have 5 rounds for this fight. I don't see Gane making it past the second. Like, if he's doing super, super phenomenal, maybe he makes it to the third. But I genuinely don't see Gane realistically making it past the second. But y'all tell me what y'all think, though. Was I right? Was I wrong? Was I stupid? Like, really would appreciate some of y'all feedback. Let me know what y'all think about this fight. Definitely looking forward to it. I might go live on TikTok a little bit for it as well. So if y'all got some time, join me. Let's have a little watch along. But see y'all next time. Peace.